The success story we're going to talk about is a cybersecurity individual who applied for the EB1-A, right? We filed it in November with premium processing, and it just got approved at the end of December, early January. The whole idea of this EB1-A category is basically to show the government, I am extraordinary in my field. I'm one of the best, and therefore, please give me a green card. This is a individual from China, and I know that's really important for me to say because a lot of people think, oh, China is an adversary to the US. They're not approving any green card applications, let alone something like EB1-A, where you just prepare the paperwork and you file, right? So there's no US citizen, there's no company sponsoring them. It's just purely them with their resume and the proof that they're extraordinary that we prepared, that we filed, and the case gets approved. Our policy at our firm is to always do premium processing unless you're part of that 1% where you need for some reason to delay your case. Then you don't do premium processing. But almost all the cases we do premium processing and immediately try to get the approval, right? And so in this case, we just directly got the approval. We didn't have to deal with the request for evidence. So you might be saying, oh, well, this case must be super good. Well, let's talk about it. Our team definitely didn't think that this was a super slam dunk case. We thought it was a good case. We worked on it. We accepted the cases. Cases that, are really weak, we generally decline. This is a cybersecurity officer in China. So they do cybersecurity there. And we argue that they're going to do great cybersecurity work here in the United States. And then the 5 areas that we prove that he is extraordinary is that he has worked at a leading and critical position, that he has a high salary, and that he made an original contribution, that he has published works, and he has a lot of media publications about him. So these are the 5 areas to demonstrate that he is extraordinary. Now, we're not limited to 5. If we could do more, we would have done more. You should have at least a minimum of 3, but it's not a slam dunk. It's guaranteed that every single one would be approved. Most cases that we file, we try to argue 4 or 5. So in this case, we did. Leading critical role, he worked at 3 big companies before. His salary was higher than the average peer, not comparable to the US salary, but definitely higher than other people in China. So that's one. He played a leading and critical role. So he was doing something pretty important at these big firms. He was doing cybersecurity. So he's not just an IT professional, but he was doing cybersecurity for these big firms. And so because he's doing that, he played a leading and critical role. If he didn't do that, then these firms could have been hacked and then the whole company could have collapsed, right? So we kind of demonstrated that. So that was a plus, and we got a lot of good letter recs from the leaders in those companies. Then we proved original contribution. That's always the hard one, to prove original and major contribution, but it needs to be made, right? And especially in the past 10 years, internet has completely changed the way we lived. And so there's so many trends that have happened in the past 10 years. And because he's worked in this field for that long, he's lived through these different trends and he's lived through the different solutions. And so it is arguable that every time there's a major crisis that happened, he was part of the solution and became part of the impact. And that's just natural, right? So anytime somebody who's like older, who have a long history in a particular field that is constantly evolving and changing, you can use that to your argument. Now, it wasn't that significantly strong. We still had a lot of letter recs to justify it, but we put that, in the 3rd place because it's always hard to argue. We saved his published work and his media publications in the end because there's a lot of hard documents that we can prove it. There were a lot of places where they advertised about him and also other news channels that reposted it. And so if he wasn't that significant, there wouldn't be all these US news, all these other news sites around the world that published about his works. So he did have articles and books. Wasn't that many, but he had them, and that he had news and articles. But these are verifiable primary sources that we can demonstrate that he did do these things. But the strongest, by far the strongest, was the leading critical role and the high salary. And the high salary was really difficult. The hardest part about this case was probably the high salary because a lot of his income was through shares. And it's a complicated company structure because he's part owner in it. So he didn't necessarily pay a lot of taxes on it, but he had the shares and the company's worth a lot. So to demonstrate that he had a high salary because of these shares and this company structure was hard. But suffice it to say, because of his leading critical role, because of his original contribution, because that he was publicized and all these things, it gives the benefit of the doubt that he had a high salary. And then when you look at it as a whole, you demonstrate, yes, he is probably one of the best cybersecurity experts in China. And then his intent to come to the US is do something significant and helpful for the US. We prepared the plan of what he's going to do, his letter of intent, different contracts that he has, and his background. We filed it in November, end of November, case got approved. And so you can see it is possible, even from an adversarial country like China, and even something as sensitive as cybersecurity. Case got approved, wait for a prior date, gonna get the green card, and whole family's gonna come in. So I know it could seem incredibly impossible in this day and age, right? Everything seems to be stacked against you. But approvals are still happening. And I think that's one of the biggest benefits of us sharing these success stories in real time, right? When the case gets approved, we immediately share it, and we shared exactly what we did. So hopefully you found this to be helpful. The team that worked on this was Andy and Alan. Props to them. They did all the heavy lifting. I only reviewed, briefly towards the end, and the case was approved. So I'm proud of the team. I'm proud of the firm, and I'm proud of anybody who have the courage to try. Because if you don't, you won't win. All right, take care. Bye-bye.